It was a hot afternoon in Georgia, the kind where the sun seems to hang too close to the earth, and every breath feels like you're inhaling warm fog. The streets buzzed lazily as folks went about their day, unaware that something unforgettable was about to unfold right in front of the corner diner on Maple Avenue. No one expected the small crowd that would gather, the angry voices that would echo, or the moment that would leave the entire town silent and stunned. It all started with an old black man. He was walking slowly, leaning on a wooden cane with a smooth brass handle, his shoulders slightly stooped, his step steady but tired. His clothes were neat, pressed slacks, a button-down shirt, and a fedora that looked like it had seen better days but still sat proudly on his head. He was the kind of man who moved like he carried the weight of more than just years. He carried dignity, history, pain, and something else that most people around him didn't recognize: wisdom. As he reached the corner to rest, sitting gently, on the edge of a public bench outside the diner, 2 police cruisers pulled up. The screech of tires caught attention, but no one thought much of it at first. After all, it's not uncommon to see cops in the area, but this time was different. The doors slammed open, and out stepped 2 white officers, both in their 30s. Both wearing mirrored sunglasses that reflected everything but revealed nothing. They approached the old man as if he were a threat. No smile, no greeting, just suspicion. Cold and heavy like a storm that doesn't announce itself until it's right overhead. "Sir, what are you doing here?" one officer asked, already placing his hand near his belt. Not on his weapon, but close enough for the message to be loud and clear. The old man looked up slowly, confused. "Just resting my legs. I've been walking a while," he said, his voice calm, respectful, with a southern drawl that seemed to come from another time. The second cop scoffed. "We've had reports of suspicious activity. You match the description. Stand up." Some people passing by began to slow down, sensing the tension. A young couple paused with iced coffees in hand. An older woman glanced out from the diner window. No one dared say anything, but you could feel it. Unease spreading like smoke. The old man's hands trembled slightly as he pushed himself up with his cane. "I don't know nothing about any report. I'm just sittin', that's all." "You have ID?" the first officer barked. "Left it at home," the old man replied. That was all it took. The second officer grabbed his arm. Hard. Too hard for someone that age. "Then you're coming with us, can't have you loitering." What did he even do? A teenager nearby asked. But the question hung in the air, unanswered and ignored. The old man didn't fight. He didn't raise his voice. But the way he looked at those officers, straight in the eye, full of quiet defiance, it was clear he'd been through worse. Much worse. That's when the shouting started. Not from the old man, but from a woman across the street who'd just stepped out of a nail salon. "You don't even know who that is," she screamed. "Y'all don't even know what you're doing." The officers barely glanced her way, and that's when it happened. A sleek black SUV pulled up silently beside the scene. The back door opened slowly, and out stepped a tall man in uniform. He didn't walk like a man in a hurry, but with purpose, authority, command. Every person watching knew who he was the second they saw the badge on his chest. Police Chief Raymond Harris. He had dark skin like the old man, but carried himself with a different kind of weight. The weight of leadership, the burden of trying to change a system from the inside. The crowd recognized him, but the officers didn't seem to realize who was walking toward them until he was right behind them. "Let him go," the chief said quietly but firmly. The officers turned, startled. "Chief Harris, we were just—" "I said let him go." There was a long pause. A heavy silence fell. One officer released his grip, and the old man stepped back, adjusting his jacket, eyes narrowed but still calm. Then Chief Harris did something no one expected. He turned to the old man and said, "I'm so sorry, sir. We've never met in person, but I've heard the stories. You were one of my teachers, not in a classroom, but in life, in the movement, in the struggle. You paved the road I walk on." The crowd gasped. The officers froze. The old man blinked slowly, as if trying to remember. "A time long buried, you remember, Selma?" the chief asked gently. "You were there. You stood in front of dogs and hoses and men who thought they could scare you into silence. You didn't flinch. The old man gave a faint smile. Been a long time since someone remembered that. Well, I never forgot, the chief said. One of the officers stuttered. Chief, we didn't know. That's the problem, Chief Harris snapped. You didn't want to know. All you saw was a black man on a bench. There was no shouting, no fists raised. But that moment cracked something open. It exposed more than just ignorance. It revealed a wound that had been ignored for too long. But before the story could even begin to settle, something else happened. On a crowded city bus just a few blocks away, a young black teen stood up and gave his seat to a pregnant white woman struggling to stay upright. She hesitated, surprised, then sat down with a grateful smile. What she did next would send ripples through both of their lives. She reached into her bag, pulled out a folded note, and handed it to him without saying a word. He took it, confused, and watched as she stepped off the bus at the next stop. When he opened the note and read what was written inside, his eyes widened. His hands shook. The words on that paper would change his life forever, and in a world already holding its breath after what had just happened on Maple Avenue. The next chapter was about to begin. The teen sat there in the middle of the half-empty bus, holding the note like it was something fragile, something heavy, something not meant for him. The edges were slightly torn, the fold creased with care. He glanced around to see if anyone else had noticed, but everyone was too busy with their phones or looking out the windows, lost in their own worlds. The driver didn't even flinch as the bus rolled past the next stop. He looked down again, heart beating faster now, and finally opened the note all the way. It read, "My son was just like you, kind, respectful, good-hearted. He died last year saving someone else. If you hadn't stood up today, I might have lost faith in people forever. Thank you. This is not the end for you. It's only the beginning. Check the envelope tucked beneath your seat." The teen's hands trembled. He quickly ducked forward and reached under the seat. At first, he didn't feel anything but old gum and a crumpled receipt. Then his fingers brushed the edge of something. A small brown envelope, sealed. His chest tightened as he pulled it out. No name, no markings. Just thick paper, heavier than it should have been. He looked up again, but the woman was long gone. The bus rolled on. Back near the diner on Maple Avenue, the mood had shifted, but no one really knew what to do next. The officers stood awkwardly by their cruiser, not meeting anyone's eyes. Chief Harris kept his back to them, still facing the old man who hadn't moved. The air felt thick with questions, most of them unspoken. "People like him built the ground you stand on," Harris said quietly to his officers. "And y'all almost dragged him off it like a criminal." Neither officer answered. Their shoulders were tense, their eyes flicking between each other like they were waiting for someone to speak first. A few people in the small crowd had pulled out their phones. Some had recorded. Others just stood in stunned silence. The old man finally let out a slow breath. "I ain't angry," he said, "just tired of seeing history repeat itself." Chief Harris nodded. "You got a name, sir?" "Folks call me Mr. Lewis," he said. "Used to be Reverend Lewis back when I still had a pulpit." The chief smiled faintly. "My grandmother used to talk about you. Said you once stared down the sheriff during the church bombings. Said you didn't blink." Mr. Lewis chuckled softly. "Didn't blink, but I sure did pray." Just then, a teenage girl from the crowd stepped forward. Her phone was still in her hand, recording. "Sir, can I ask you something?" she said, her voice careful. Mr. Lewis turned to her. "Why don't more people know who you are?" He thought for a second before answering. "Because the loudest people usually ain't the wisest. And history don't always like to remember the ones who didn't burn things down, just the ones who lit the matches." Her eyes lingered on him for a second longer before she stepped back. The crowd started to thin. A couple of people nodded respectfully at Mr. Lewis before walking off, but no one forgot what they saw. Not the hands grabbing, not the chief's voice, not the words, "He was one of my teachers." A storm had started to gather, but it hadn't hit yet. Across town, the teen had stepped off the bus and walked a few blocks before ducking into the alley behind his apartment building. His heart was still racing. He looked around to make sure no one was watching, then carefully opened the envelope. Inside was a crisp white letter and a check. He stared at it for a moment, not fully believing his eyes. His knees buckled slightly and he crouched down against the brick wall. It wasn't just any check. It had 6 figures. He had to read it twice before his brain could even accept the number. His name was written across the top in clean cursive letters. Dated that morning. Signed with a name he didn't recognize. He unfolded the letter next. It was handwritten. Neat, almost formal. You gave me something money can't buy today, hope. My late son had a scholarship fund in his name, one we've never found the right person to honor it with. Until now. If you're reading this, then I already knew you were the right one. Not because of your grades or resume, but because of your heart. Use this however you see fit. College, travel, change the world. Just promise me you won't let it harden you. Stay kind. He blinked fast, wiping his eyes with the back of his hand. His name was Marcus. 17 years old, senior at Booker T. Washington High. His mom worked 2 jobs, nursing home and a corner store, and his little brother was only 9. College had always been a dream, but barely a reachable one. He'd been applying for scholarships every night, hoping something would come through. He never imagined it would come from a stranger on a bus, but as he stared at the check, something else began to grow in his chest. Not just joy or disbelief, but pressure. A kind of weight. Why him? Why now? Who was the woman, really? He didn't even get her name. And why did she say this is only the beginning? Something told him this wasn't random. Something deeper was unfolding. Bigger than just him. Bigger than the old man on the bench. Bigger than a kind gesture on a bus. Back on Maple Avenue, Mr. Lewis was finally preparing to leave. The chief offered to give him a ride, but he waved him off. I still walk just fine, he said. And I need to think. Harris nodded. We'll talk again, sir, soon. As Mr. Lewis disappeared around the corner, Chief Harris turned back to his officers. His jaw clenched. We're going to have a conversation back at the station. And it's not going to be short. Neither of them said a word. But the looks on their faces said they knew. The old rules weren't going to protect them this time. In the shadows, a man in plain clothes stood watching. He hadn't said anything, hadn't moved, just observed. His eyes followed Mr. Lewis down the street before slipping into a quiet alley. He pulled out a phone and made a call. It started, he said. The man from the bus, the old man, the chief, all connected, just like we thought. There was silence on the other end. Then a voice replied, cold and calm. Watch them, all. No interference. Not yet. The line went dead, and just like that, the real story, the one no one saw coming, was beginning to unfold.